You've been trying so hard, haven't you? Not just this week, not just today, but for what feels like your entire life. Every step forward feels like it costs a little more of you. Every silence feels like something you have to fill. And every delay feels like punishment for not doing enough. You plan, you stretch, you strive. You tell yourself it's just discipline, that this is what it takes. That exhaustion is the price for getting ahead. But here's a truth your soul already knows. There is a kind of effort that drains you, not because you're weak, but because you're carrying what was never yours to hold in the first place. That quiet panic, the pressure humming under every decision, that isn't your true voice. It's the echo of a world that taught you love must be earned, peace must be hunted, and rest is for the lazy. And so you keep pushing, not because you're motivated, but because you're afraid. Afraid that if you stop, everything might collapse. That if you loosen your grip, life will slip right through your fingers. But what if that's the lie? What if the very act of forcing is what's keeping everything from falling into place? You see, force is fear's disguise. It dresses up in productivity and wears the mask of ambition, but it leaves you hollow. It tricks you into believing that the tighter you hold on, the safer you are, when really you're just building walls against what was meant to flow. And flow doesn't need to be forced. Water never begs to be guided. It simply moves, and it finds its way. So why are you trying to push the ocean? I know. You've been told your whole life that success is a battle, that happiness is a summit, that love is something you prove you're worthy of. But that narrative, it's tearing you apart. It's turning your life into a race and your peace into a casualty. And the truth is, you're not broken. You're just tired of performing strength. You're exhausted from pretending that every step has to be a climb. Deep down, there's a whisper in your heart. You've tried to silence one that says, "What if I let go? What if I don't fight this time?" Let that whisper grow. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. You were never meant to grip life this hard. You were meant to live it. There's a lie we've all swallowed quietly, the idea that if we just hold on tightly enough, we can keep the world from breaking apart. That if we never stop trying, we'll never lose. So we grip. We grip hard. We grip when love fades. We grip when goals no longer inspire us. We grip when the path turns dark and we no longer remember why we chose it. And we tell ourselves it's strength. But what if it's fear? Not fear of failure, no. It's deeper than that. It's the fear that if we stop holding everything together, no one else will. That our value disappears the moment we release the reins. So we stay in the job that hollows us out. We stay in the relationships where we have to earn our right to be seen. We keep chasing outcomes like lifelines, thinking our worth is on the other end of achievement. But all the while, we're bleeding something we can't name. And when you live this way for long enough, it becomes normal. You don't even notice the pressure anymore. Like a noise that's been playing so long, you forget what silence sounds like. That's what force does. It rewrites your nervous system to believe urgency is safety. That tension is your baseline. That effort is your identity. And the tragedy, you forget what it means to be held not by your own strength, but by something greater than your need to control. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't letting go. It's believing you're allowed to. And you are. You always were. You were never meant to grip life until your hands bled. You were meant to trust the flow, to to lean into a rhythm that carries you instead of crushes you. So if it feels heavy, maybe it's not because you're weak. Maybe it's because you were never meant to carry it alone. There's a quiet line between effort and struggle. Most of us cross it without knowing. Effort feels like movement, a gentle forward pull. Struggle feels like dragging your heart through thorns. Effort gives, struggle takes. And the difference isn't in what you're doing, it's in what's driving you. I remember someone once told me, "You're so strong for holding it all together." But I wasn't strong. I was scared. I was afraid of who I'd be without the weight. I was afraid that if I stopped fighting, people would stop loving me. That without the struggle, I'd be invisible. So I kept trying to make things work, trying to be enough, trying to be wanted, trying to fix what wasn't mine to fix. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't living. I was performing survival, not from love, but from fear. Fear that if I didn't struggle, it meant I didn't care. Fear that ease was laziness. Fear that rest meant giving up. But no one told me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop. Not stop caring, stop clinging. There's a sacred kind of effort, the kind that flows from peace, not panic. It doesn't need to prove. It doesn't need to be seen. It doesn't burn you to the ground just to build something others applaud. That kind of effort whispers, "I'm not forcing, I'm aligning." And alignment, that's when the world starts to meet you halfway. That's when you stop sacrificing yourself for progress that was never meant to cost your soul. So, if your body is tired, but your heart is screaming louder, listen. Maybe you're not weak. Maybe you're wise enough to recognize that struggle is not your purpose. It's strange, isn't it? How silence can feel threatening. How stillness can feel like failure. How rest can trigger guilt louder than exhaustion ever did. When you've spent years surviving in chaos, peace doesn't feel safe, it feels suspicious. It feels like a mistake, like a trap you weren't warned about. So even when life starts to slow down, even when the weight begins to lift, part of you reaches back for the burden. Because you don't know who you are without it. And that's not weakness, that's adaptation. It's your nervous system shaped by years of pressure telling you that tension is home, that rushing is normal, that anxiety means you're doing something right. You learned to move fast so you wouldn't have to feel. You learned to be useful so you wouldn't feel replaceable. You learned to be busy so you wouldn't feel broken. But none of that was ever your truth. You were born into rhythm, not resistance. You were meant to breathe without bracing, to walk without waiting for something to go wrong, to be still and feel safe. And maybe no one ever told you this before. So let me be the one who does. You don't have to apologize for slowing down. You don't have to explain why you need space. You don't have to earn your right to exist in stillness. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not act, not fix, not force, but to stay. Stay in the quiet. Stay in the in-between. Stay long enough to realize the storm isn't chasing you anymore. And in that space, in that sacred pause, you'll remember, flow isn't foreign. You just forgot how it feels. There are things you picked up along the way. Burdens, stories, expectations that were never yours. But you carried them anyway. Like the silent tension in your family that no one spoke of, so you became the peacekeeper. Like the heartbreak in someone else's eyes, so you made it your mission to heal them. Like the guilt passed down through generations, so you wore it like it belonged to you. And maybe they said, You're so mature for your age. Maybe they praised your strength, your understanding, your ability to hold everyone together. But no one asked what it was costing you. No one asked who was holding you. So you became the fixer, the one who showed up, the one who stayed calm while everything else burned. And slowly, you began to believe that being loved meant being useful, being needed, not nurtured. But that's the heartbreak, isn't it? That you learned to trade your peace for their comfort. That you said yes when your whole body whispered no. That you built bridges for others while drowning under the weight of holding them up. And here's the quiet truth. You don't have to keep doing that. You don't have to keep breaking yourself to hold what was never meant to be yours. Some wounds aren't yours to heal. Some people aren't yours to rescue. Some chaos isn't yours to calm. And that doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. Because when you start putting things down, the guilt, the pressure, the roles you never asked for, something sacred begins to rise. You start hearing your own voice again. You start feeling your own needs. You begin to choose yourself, not in defiance, but in devotion. You were never meant to fix everything. You were meant to live free. Trust is a soft language. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It doesn't panic when nothing happens right away. But force is loud. It stomps into the room with clenched fists and a pounding heart. It wants results, now answers, now peace, now. Not because it's confident, but because it's afraid. When we don't trust the timing, we rush. When we don't trust ourselves, we over-explain. When we don't trust life, we grip every moment like it owes us something. And yet, the most meaningful things in life don't respond to force. They respond to flow, to quiet presence, to gentle attention, to a kind of faith that doesn't need proof before it begins to believe. Think about it. Love that's real doesn't need to be chased. Opportunities that are right don't need to be begged for. Healing that is true doesn't arrive through self-punishment. It all comes in rhythm. It arrives when you're ready, not when you demand. It lands softly when there's space for it, not when there's panic to control it. So, maybe flow isn't the opposite of effort. Maybe it's the evolution of it. Effort with grace, motion with peace, action with alignment. When you act from trust, your energy shifts. You stop moving from fear of missing out and start moving from the belief that what's for you will know how to find you. And in that space, in that sacred slowing life begins to breathe with you again. So pause. Feel the current beneath your feet. Let it guide you, not drown you. Let it hold you, not hurry you. Because flow was never the absence of movement, it was the return to trust. What's meant for you won't make you chase it until you forget who you are. It won't twist your spirit into knots or make you perform a version of yourself just to keep it near. It doesn't need noise. It doesn't need proving. It waits. Quietly, patiently, until you're ready to see it. But in a world that screams louder, is better and faster, is success, alignment feels invisible. It doesn't crash in with drama. It arrives like a whisper. That's why most people miss it. They're too busy running, climbing, achieving, always asking what's next, while the real answer waits in the stillness they avoid. You see, alignment isn't something you catch. It's something you allow. It's not the prize at the end of hustle. It's the presence that meets you when you slow down long enough to listen. and it never asks you to betray yourself. If something demands that you shrink, it's not aligned. If it makes you feel small to stay, it's not aligned. If you have to become someone else to be loved, it's not aligned. Because when you're truly in alignment, you don't feel tension. You feel truth. You don't feel urgency. You feel clarity. You don't have to try so hard, you just have to show up as you are. And maybe you've been taught to doubt that, to think that ease means you're missing out, to believe that only what costs you is worth something. But here's a softer truth. The things that are truly for you won't require you to break yourself open just to receive them. They will ask for honesty, for presence, for patience, not performance. So stop chasing what runs from you and start becoming still enough to recognize what's always been waiting. Alignment doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It waits for you to come home. We're taught from a young age that holding on is strength, that the longer we endure, the more we're worth, that to let go is to lose. But what if that's the lie? What if letting go isn't the end, it's the beginning? You see, there comes a moment when your soul grows heavier than the thing you're holding, when the grip begins to hurt more than the fall ever could. And in that moment, something inside you whispers softly but firmly, "It's okay to stop now." And you hesitate because you've built your identity around holding on, around fixing, around enduring. But you weren't born to carry what breaks you. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to stop bleeding for something that wouldn't stop cutting. It doesn't mean you gave up. It means you gave yourself back. You can love someone and still leave. You can believe in something and still walk away. You can outgrow a dream without betraying it. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose peace over pride, stillness over striving, self-honesty over social approval. And yes, at first it feels like loss, like something sacred has slipped through your fingers. But stay in that feeling long enough, and you'll see it's not emptiness. It's space. Space for something real, something nourishing, something true. So if you're standing at the edge afraid of what happens when you stop trying, let go. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. And in that release, you'll find something you thought was gone. Yourself, unburdened, undeniable, unafraid. At first it feels strange. Stillness feels wrong. Ease feels like laziness. Rest feels like you've fallen behind. You've spent so long in motion, in fixing, in proving, in earning, that slowing down feels like failure, like guilt wrapped in silence. But then, something shifts, not in the world outside you, but in the space within. It's subtle, quiet, almost too gentle to notice. Your shoulders drop just a little lower. Your breath finds its way deeper into your chest. The tension behind your eyes begins to soften. And without even realizing it, you exhale a real exhale, not the one you fake to seem composed, but the one that rises from your bones and says, "I'm finally safe." That's what trust feels like. Not a loud declaration, not a plan, just a quiet knowing that you don't have to chase what's already yours. And for the first time in a long time, you stop apologizing for moving slowly. You stop shrinking yourself for comfort. You stop overthinking every silence and see it as space, not danger. You begin to choose based on alignment, not fear. You begin to say no without guilt And yes, without resistance, you begin to trust the quiet inside you, even when no one else understands it. This kind of trust isn't built overnight. It's built in moments like this, when you decide to listen inward instead of react outward. When you let go of urgency and lean into enoughness. So if you've made it this far, if you're still listening with your heart cracked open and your hands slowly loosening their grip, know this: you're not falling behind. You're falling into rhythm. And rhythm doesn't ask you to hurry. It asks you to feel. Life isn't a burden to pull. It's a rhythm to feel. A tide that moves with you, not because you force it to, but because you allow it to. But somewhere along the way, you were taught that the harder you push, the more you earn. That rest is permission you must earn. That peace is a reward, not a birthright. So you tried to drag life toward you, pulling at moments, forcing outcomes, gripping timelines like they were slipping from your hands. And it worked for a while. You got the job, the praise, the checkbox life. But inside, something was always missing yourself. You can't bring yourself forward if you're busy dragging everything else. The truth is, life responds to softness, to presence, to trust, not to pressure. And what's meant for you, it doesn't ask to be chased. It moves when you're ready. It rises when you're still. It meets you the moment you stop sprinting past it. You don't have to be the one forcing everything into place anymore. You can step back. You can breathe. You can trust. Let the doors that aren't meant for you stay closed. Let the people who don't see you walk away. Let the plans that collapse make space for what fits. Because this isn't the end of your story. It's the end of the struggle. And in that ending, there's a beginning. Not built on exhaustion, not born from fear, but shaped by something softer, a quiet knowing that says, you were never supposed to force it. You were only ever meant to flow. So take one last breath with me, the kind that doesn't brace but releases. Now, let go. And finally, let life meet you.